Okay, now I can share my screen. Okay, so what we're going to take a look at today is TLM, is a manager training for Kronos. So real simple, TLM is time and labor management. So we're just going to look at a couple things today. One is employee access, how to unlock or reset passwords for employees. We're going to look at timesheets or time cards. We're going to look at the timesheet itself. We're going to look at missing punches, change requests, time off, and approving timesheets and what all those things mean. We're going to take a look at the employee information, and we're also going to go to errors and warnings and take a look at those. So let's just jump right into the system. And so I'm going to start off. So this is my home page. So you can see home up here in the upper left-hand corner. All managers have this My Employees green icon here in the center. So the My Home that's in blue, the blue magnifying glass, that's your own stuff. You as a, you're an employee too as a manager. But My Employees, that's going to be the tab where you're going to look in all the employees that report to you or that fall under you in the system. They're going to be accessed through this. And what we have set up is there's 9 links here. These are probably some of the most common things that we're going to do through Kronos. If there's some other things that we need to add, we can always add more sections later. But this is a good place to start. So we're going to start with 2 of the easiest ones. Those employee accounts, we're going to take a look at how to reset employee password. So we just go right here, employee password reset. So one thing I would caution everybody on while this is loading is if you get an email from an employee that says, hey, can you reset my Kronos password? I don't do it. What I do is I pick up the phone and call that employee and say, hey, did you just send me an email? Can you reset my password? There's enough fraudulent and spam emails going on that we don't want to do that without actually talking to the employee. You speak to the employee, they confirm it's them, then I would just go ahead and do it. So we're just going to go to the test employee. Let's see. So there are a couple. So if I apologize, if I click on this button here for search, the little magnifying glass, it opens it up, and I am going to click in here under first name. I'm going to start search, and we're searching starts with. So I'm just going to type in test. And I hit enter, and you can see I have 3 employees with the first name of test. And I am going to highlight this one, test HR action. So last name HR action is the employee I want to take a look at today. I'm going to click apply, and it puts them here in this box. The other way to do that, if I had wanted to, under where it says choose employees, I can just click my cursor there and start typing. And you can see that if there was only 3 people with the first name of test, it'll come up with those options. But I can also click that browse multiple employees, and it pulls up that very same report where once again I can type in test, hit enter, and select the person. So either way, they both work. I click apply, and then I click the up here in the upper right hand corner. If I click the button for reset password, and then in green, I get a check mark. It says test HR action in Mill Creek Manor. That's the employee, the EIN, and password has been reset. So that person has their password reset. So the next thing I do is I'm going to click the LECOM Institute for Successful Aging logo. Anytime I click that, it's always taking me back to my home screen. I'm going to go back to my employees, and if I ever do a password reset, I'm also going to do an unlock in combination with that. So the unlock, other possibility, if somebody's knows their password, but maybe tried a couple of different attempts, and their account gets locked and just says, hey, I know I typed it wrong. Well, then you can just go directly here. If not, I would do reset the password first and then go to unlock. So we're going to do the very same thing. I'm going to type in tests. A couple people go up. So this time I'll just highlight test HR action. and click unlock, or I could have done that browse had I wanted to. But since their name's in there, I'm going to click unlock, and one employee account has been successfully unlocked. So now what is that password? So that password is Kronos with a capital K. So KRONOS, the @ symbol, and the numbers 1, 2, 3. So that's always the default password. And when an employee goes to enter it as their one time, they put it in as the one time, and then it says, please give me your old password. It's going to be that, the Kronos @ 1, 2, 3 with the capital K, and then choose a new password and then retype the new password. So that's the steps that they'll have to take as an employee. So if I click back to the LECOM Institute for Successful Aging button, so that's really employee accounts. How they can get in is really just these two buttons. If you reach out to an HR person because they're having trouble or you're having trouble, those are really the two places we're going to go. There's not a whole lot more to it to resetting an account. So before we go too much further, I did want to mention, if you haven't watched the employee videos, take the time, watch the employee videos. They're going to give you a lot of information on how to do everything from an employee's perspective and a lot of the different rules and everything. But we'll go over the how for the manager part. But having that knowledge is very helpful over and above this, the training we're going to go over today. So the next thing we're going to take a look at is we're going to go into a current timesheet for an employee. So the very first option is employee information. If we click on that, we're going to look somebody up. So again, you can look up somebody in a variety of different ways. We're going to just start with first name, and I'm going to look up one of the other employees named Test. So I just type it in, starts with Test. And I can see, there's three options. If you don't know, exactly how somebody's name is spelled on the starts with, we can change this by clicking the down arrow. We can change it to like. So maybe, you just know that it starts with a T. Well, then you can search everybody with a T, or, it's TE to start, but you're not really sure from there. We can search everybody that starts TE. Since we know this one, I'm going to make it a little simpler. I'm going to go into this test employee 2 who works at the SLC. And there's two icons here. One is the employee information, and the second is the quick links. So we'll look at employee information later on, but we'll start into quick links for now. And it's going to open up a little screen. So your view may be slightly different than mine here, but you will have a current timesheet button. So if I click on that, we're going to open up the employee's current timesheet. So this is the timesheet for this pay period that we're currently in. So let's just say it's payroll Monday. Well, so the next payroll Monday that's coming up is going to be May 2nd, 2022. And if you go here and you're looking to approve payroll and you want to look at the employee's timesheet, we may need to click this back button to go back to a previous pay period. Or if we want to go to the future to look maybe what's going on with that employee in the future, you may want to click this forward button. So we're going to go back, and here we are. We're on the current timesheet, and I just have some examples of some things that are going on with this employee. So at the top, you can see there's a raw total and a calculated total. So the raw total, what that means is that's the number of hours that the employee is punched in for without any rounding rules applied. So if you remember from the employee videos, there are rounding rules for all of our punches and lunch rules. So some of those may affect, and you can see that the calculated total, the number of hours the employee is actually going to be paid, is less than the raw total. There are a number of issues going on with this time card, and obviously it's on purpose, so you can see some examples. So we're going to go through and we're just going to take a quick look at this, and then we're going to go to some other areas of the system that we may really go to first before coming here. But I wanted to give you a nice idea of what this time card looks like. So if we go to Monday the 18th, we can see that this employee punched in at 7:03, punched out at 1:00 p.m. for lunch. So you can see 7:03 to 1 p.m. There it says 5.95. That's under the raw total. The calc total is 6 hours. So it rounded that 7:03 back to 7 a.m. because that's the closest 15 minutes. And the calc total is now 6 hours. Coming back from lunch, they punched in a little late, took a long lunch. So this person came back at 1:41. So that rounded them forward to 1:45 p.m. So you can see the calc total here at 5.82 hours, but in reality, the calc total is 5.75. So that gives them 11.75 hours worked for the day. Had they come back from lunch at 1:30, that would have given them 6 hours in the calc total, and they would have had 12 hours for the day. So some other things we're going to take a look at real quick before we go into other parts of the system. We're going to take a look at Tuesday. We can see Tuesday there's a punch in, but no corresponding punch out. So we need to make sure that we get that resolved. Wednesday, there's another flip side example. There's no punch in, but there is a punch out. Thursday, similar issue. Punch in, but no punch out. Friday has two punches, has a punch in and a punch out, but they're on different lines. On Sunday, the 24th, we have a punch in and an out. And on Monday, the 25th, we have a punch in and a punch out. So on its face, the time card looks like there's got a couple things to resolve. There may be a few other issues. We'll come back to those later, but at least wanted to give you some ideas. So this employee is missing some punches. So where could we go to find those? So you probably wouldn't come to the time card first. So I'm going to click back on this. And so if we're looking at missed punches, missing punches to resolve, that's a report that we probably want to look at maybe once or twice a week. At no less, we want to take a look at it every pay period, because if there's missing punches to resolve, so what does that mean? It basically means there's an odd number of punches for the day on any particular line on the time card. So if somebody punched in but didn't punch out, somebody punched out but never punched in. So the system is looking for those odd number of punches and giving a report to say, you know, what needs resolved. So a salaried employee is never going to be on here. They're going to punch. Their rule is they punch once per day, so they're not going to show on this report. But this report is going to show for any hourly employees. So the next thing we might want to take a look at is you can see that up here in the top right, there's this timesheet date. So this is looking at yesterday and today. That's just how this report auto populates. We can change that. But so if you can see this employee in the top, actually this whole page, this is today. These employees all punched in at some point today. So that's probably not a useful part of the report for us. But what we can do is we can click on this timesheet dates and we'll change calendar range. We'll go to date range and, or excuse me, we'll go to pay period. And we'll just take a look at this current pay period. So we'll click apply. And as it loads here, we can see there's 280 rows. So 280 potential missed punches, but a good number of them are probably from 425. So what I'll do is I'll just, and this might be a little too complicated. We can, you know, move forward and change this page number. We could flip all the way to page 28, click enter, and you can see here's some punches from 418. Or something else that we could do is we could change this date to maybe something less than 04/25/2020. Oops. 04/25/2022. Click enter. And now we can see everything from 424 and back. There's now only 81 of those 200 and some rows that need resolved. So if I take a look at these, so for example, let's just take a look at this one. Yolanda Stewart's only listed twice. So she has start, that would be a punch in at 11:07 p.m., but there's no corresponding punch out. So that employee would be responsible to go in and put a change request for that. But at least it alerts us to know that those things need resolved. So I'm kind of doing this a little bit out of order. We would probably go to those change requests first and try to resolve whatever we can. But I wanted to show you how, basically kind of how the system works and give you that good overview. So another issue we could see here is we could see Sherry Davidson has a punch in, but has a punch out for the same date on a different line. So something must have happened in the system, and it looks like she worked an extra long day. So maybe there was an issue. It thought maybe, there should be some punches in the middle. If that should be the same, then we can go and correct that on the timesheet itself, and we'll come to that shortly. So to sum up, missing punches. Missing punches is a report that gives you or shows you any odd number of punch by a person on a particular day. So if they have one punch, if they have 3 punches or 5 punches on a particular day, it'll give you those odd numbers and say, hey, look out for this. Now, if somebody punched in the morning, punched out for lunch, and then never punched back in after lunch and never punched out for the end of the day, it has an even number of punches. It's not going to show up in this report because it has an even number, but at least it's something to get you going and try to stay on top of the employees to make sure that their punches are appropriate. So we're going to go back for a second though, and I'm going to click discard. If you wanted to save this view, we could save that view, but we'll take a look at reports and views later. I'm going to go back to my employees, and we're going to go to pending change requests. So this is probably the place that I would start if I was going to go work on these things instead of starting at the current timesheet or starting on missing punches to resolve. I would start here, but from a training perspective, it'd probably be a little confusing to come here first. So remember those change requests. If an employee forgets to punch in or punch out, it's their responsibility. They go in and enter a change request. And there's some other functions that they can do as well. They can cancel a lunch. They can ask to modify a punch in or punch out if they punched in at the wrong time. Let's say they forgot to punch and they came back. Maybe they were supposed to start at 7. They said they were here and they ran by the time clock and then came back at 9 o'clock and punched in and said, oh, I forgot, I was really here, but I punched at the wrong time just to punch in. Well, they could go in and enter a change request that you would then have to approve. So those change requests aren't automatic. So this pending change request, let's take a look real quick. We're going to type in the test employee, and we're going to see that the test employees put in 3 different change requests for the time period, the last and current months, and coincidentally, they all end up being on this pay period. So as we look at these, we're going to look at on 4/19. There's an add punch in. So if you remember when we were looking on the 19th, there was no, add punch out. There wasn't a punch out on the 19th. Now, if we want to take a look, we can click on this pencil. We can go to view edit timesheet and we can take a look. So they were saying they wanted to add a punch out for 7:30. We can see if that's appropriate. You can cross-reference versus your schedule. You can, if it's wrong, we don't have to approve. We can click this timesheet edit button. We can go back and figure out what to do. So we're going to highlight this, and if it's wrong, we can reject it. And we can say, this isn't the appropriate time. Please come see me. Or we can cancel, and we could click approve. If this is appropriate, we can click approve. We can type a note. You don't have to on an approval. You do have to on a rejection. So we could say, this is correct. And when you click approve, that punch is then automatically going to go to their timesheet. So because this person has more, you can see the pencil is still there. So I can go back to the pencil and I can see that Tuesday the 19th, that is now plugged in. So that punch that we just approved through the change request is there. Oops, I accidentally deleted it. Apologize for that mistake. So now we're going to go back to that report for change requests. So another type of change request, you can see this modified cost center. So scroll over a little bit. says the comment was approved to work through lunch today. What's the new value? Cancel lunch. So this would basically be, you know, there's that automatic 30-minute lunch deduction if somebody does not punch out for lunch. So this cancel lunch is the equivalent of working through that lunch. So what I could do is then click this, and if that's appropriate, we can then approve, and we could just say real easy, we can say approved. We also could leave that note blank, and then that will then add that 30 minutes that would have been auto deducted for lunch because the employee didn't punch in and punch out for lunch would be auto added back into the system for them. So just a third type here, we can see that on this date 4/20, the employee requested to add a punch in. Why did they do that? They say, I don't have my badge, I couldn't punch in. The new value, they're asking for 7 a.m. And we can see timesheet start and end. So if that's appropriate, what we could do is we could click yes and click approve. We don't need to put a reason. And now it's going to populate on the timesheet. Now that we've resolved all of those, there's nothing left on that report to show. So time change requests are very easy to take a look at. They're very easy to either approve or deny. So if we went back to those missing punches to resolve, and I type in first name test. Under yesterday and today, there is none, but if I go back to the pay period range for this pay period and click apply, we can see that there are still some missing punches out there. And so we may have to reach back out to the employee and say, hey, can we resolve some of these things? Now, one of these things we can see on these two are on the same date. So that's something that we as a manager can correct ourselves. However, and the same with 4/20, there's 2 punches on the same date. So that's potentially something that we can resolve, but another punch without a corresponding. So maybe that's something else. So when we get back to the time card, we'll take a look at all those dates. Now that's kind of a nice summary of missing punches and change requests. So we're just going to go back. We're going to discard out of that. So one of the next things we're going to take a look at is this time off pending approval. And it also says all open. So if we click on this, so I have the report set up myself, pre-saved to request the dates last and current months. We can change this again to kind of whatever we want. Calendar range might be the easiest. One of the easiest ones to do is this year. So these would be things that are open, unresolved as we go up through the year. So I can choose that. But you know, one of those shorter ranges might be better for you depending on what we're taking a look at. So if I type in again for my first name, we're going to look at that employee. So that same employee test, and we're going to see they have a lot going on. So I apologize, there is more than one test employee. So we are going to, I'm going to change this to like, and we're just going to look at the one that works for the Mill Creek Manor. And that way I make sure that we're looking at the right one. So this is the employee that works at the Mill Creek Manor, works for the Mill Creek Manor at the SLC, test employee 2. So we can see that they have a number of requests coming up. So if we want to take a look at more specifically, we can scroll over this way. We can see this date. They have a request for 4/28. They're asking for 2 hours of sick time, and they requested on 4/25. The next one down, 4/30, they asked for 12 hours of vacation. On, again, 4/25, I put on all these requests this morning to make sure it gave some examples. So here, this first one, they had asked for that partial day. So if you think from the employee standpoint, there's 3 different ways you can request time off, either a partial day. So they asked for a partial day of sick. The next example, they asked for a full day of vacation. And the next example, they asked for the 6th are the 610, 611, and 612. So 3 consecutive days. So multiple days of vacation for 12 hours each. So with this sick, if we want to, we can also view the comments. So we can see they'd like to leave at 12:30 and be back at 2:30 for a doctor's appointment. And we could go through all of them. They're basically vacation day. And then these 3 should be the same because they were all put together as one. 3 vacation days, please. So what can we do with these? Well, very similar to those change requests. We can either one by one approve or reject, or we can even highlight them all and approve or reject them all. Now, if we want to take a look at things, there's a few different icons here. So we can take a look at their accruals, like what amount of time off do they have? We can, again, go back to the employee information. We can review or modify those time off requests, or we can take a look at the timesheet. So let's do quick. Let's just see what their balances are. So this pulls up, and this is a snippet exactly right from the employee information. So this is the employee themselves can see this exact same report. So you can see old vacation, they have no balances. Sick, they have a current balance of 18.5, none scheduled, and 2 pending approval. Vacation, they have a balance of 47, they have 0 scheduled and pending approval 48. So we're not going to be able to approve all of those hours. We may have to modify something. So we're going to go back and we're going to close this. So let's just say that all these requests are appropriate. We want to approve everything that we possibly can. So let's say let the sick, we're going to go in and approve that. We can do that. We can put in a comment if we wish. Maybe it's see me when you return from your appointment. And click approve. And then again, just like the change request, that's automatically going to populate on the employee's time card. So with this next one, maybe it's something that they had told us about before, you know, even though it's only a couple days away, maybe it's something that we've pre-approved and we just didn't get in and process timely on our end. We can go in and approve that, or if it's not appropriate, we're not able to approve it, we could reject it. So just for ease sake, though, I'm just going to approve it. And then we have these 3. So remember, we have a remaining balance. So there's 36 hours here of requests, and we're going to have a remaining balance of 35. So maybe we can approve 2 of these, and we can we could review and modify 1 of these. Maybe we can modify it to 11 hours. And that's all they have left. We can modify the requests, click OK, and then we can tell them request approved, but you only have 11 hours left to use. Approved for that. Or maybe we deny, depending on the situation, what the balances are, you know, what the numbers are and everything. And those are some things that, you know, we can work with to help you. So now if we want to go back to the timesheet, we can take a look at that. Again, click the Institute for Successful Aging logo. We're going to skip, we're not going to save that report. We're going to go to discard. We can click on the employee information from the My Employees. And again, we're going to search for the test employee. We're going to find, here's the one that works for the SLC. We're going to click the quick links, click current timesheet. And if we scroll down to those dates, 4/28 and 4/30, we can see 2 hours on Thursday, April 28th have been put in under the time off category or column will show us that it's sick time. And if we look on Saturday, April 30th, remember we approved 12 hours on Saturday, April 30th under the time off category for vacation. So if we scroll back up, one of the other things, if you remember, we also approved on Tuesday, April 19th, one of the change requests, a cancel lunch. So that this person, instead of having 7 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. with a half hour auto deducted for lunch, with that cancel lunch, it adds that back in. So there's 12.5 hours under the calculated total. So wanted to go back and really take another look at the timesheet here. What are some things that are going on? So if it was payroll Monday, we can open up timesheet by timesheet and take a look at everything. So let's do that as if we're going to review this timesheet in whole, and we're really going to take a deep dive. Well, we already looked at Monday the 18th, have that resolved. We did get those change requests. There were 2 of them for the 19th. So we resolved both of those, adding the punch out for 7:30 p.m. and the cancel lunch. So those are both taken care of. Now, if we go down to the 20th, so you can see on the 20th, we had a punch in at 7 a.m., but for whatever reason, they broke these up, and the punch in and the punch out are on a separate line. So you don't need to make the employee go back and enter a change request for this. We can manually correct it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in 7:30 here. I'm going to correct this to PM. And I am going to check my in and out dates. They both match up: Wednesday, April 20th, Wednesday, April 20th, Wednesday, April 20th. So I'm going to click now save. I apologize. So I got a little error there. Time entry overlaps. So what I should have done is also deleted this at the same time. And now I'm going to save it, and it's going to be correct. So you can see timesheet saved. So I wasn't able to save that change because I had 2 times that were exactly the same. Now that it's corrected, I'm able to move on. So I do need to follow up with the employee though, and probably myself, maybe take a look at the schedule so I can see on Thursday, April 21st, there's a 7:07 a.m. punch in, but no corresponding punch out. So that's something that's going to need resolved before we can move on. We're not going to be able to move on and approve this time card if it was payroll Monday until that's taken care of. So if I move down, Friday, April 22nd, there's another one of those examples. So I can see a 7 a.m. on Friday the 22nd, 7:30 p.m. Friday the 22nd punch out. So we will need to correct those. So I'm going to go up here. I'm going to type 7:30. I'm going to change AM to PM. So 7 a.m., 7:30 p.m. punch out. And I'm going to delete this second one and now correct that. Again, that's something we don't have to push to the employee. It doesn't happen too often, but enough, it can happen. So I want to make sure we point that out here and why I gave 2 examples. So another issue that can come up, and so good time to point out. So this E, you can see a number of these have a red E. So those are actually something that someone, a manager or an administrator in the system manually entered. So since I made up this time card and the employee didn't actually punch in on the time clock or use any change requests to punch in, you can see quite a number of E's. If we scroll back up, we can, if you remember when we had those change requests, the 7:30 p.m. out on the 19th or the 7 a.m. on the 20th, there's no E here because those are system generated. It's something where the employee put in a request, you approved, or maybe if it wasn't that change request, maybe the employee actually punched on a time clock or punched in on their computer. But if we go back, you can see that there is an E here. So that means it was a manual entry, but there's an issue. Somehow, when I manually entered 6:30 on the 24th as a punch out, I didn't change AM to PM. And it took me from in date on the 24th to out on Monday the 25th. So this employee has 23 calculated hours, 23 hours in a row. This employee did not work 23 hours. So what I want to do is make sure we go back and correct that. So 2 things. One, I'm going to change this to 6:30 p.m. Now, if I just left it at that, it's only going to extend it, make that 12 hours longer. So I also want to go over here and click this down arrow and correct that back to Sunday, April 24th. So you do have to watch if you're adding hours in manually for whatever reason or correcting punches, that we are taking that extra couple minutes and making sure that the dates are appropriate. So I'm going to click save. Basically, remember, after every change, if you are making changes on a time card, we want to make sure that we click save. So I was going to scroll back down just a little bit further and just wanted to show you another example of something else. So Monday, April 25th, that 7:06 a.m. punch in, a 1 p.m. punch out. The employee didn't punch back in or out, not back in from lunch, didn't punch back out for the end of the day. So the system assumes that the lunch was taken during this time frame because it's over 4.5 hours long, and does not give you a missing punch in that missing punch report because there are 2 punches, a punch in and an out. So the raw total is 5.9 hours with a calculated, which would then round back to 6 with the calculated total, but take out the half hour for that auto lunch deduction to take it to 5.5 hours for the day. So that would be one of those situations. I might take a second and take a look. Did that person come back from lunch? Were they really done at 1? What was going on with that day? And then as we scroll back down, you can see the other dates that we did the time off at the bottom that we just reviewed. So if we were on this time card and if it was payroll Monday, we could click the approve button and approve that time card. So we'll go back to the approval widget. We'll talk about that in a second. But I wanted to give you this view of it from the timesheet. What other things do you want to maybe take a look at when you're looking at the timesheet? Over here, there's a status. So this one's open. So basically, this is ahead of time. There are going to be some other statuses you might want to watch for. One is going to be submitted. That one is basically, it's something payroll does every Monday morning, 8 a.m. or every payroll Monday at 8 a.m. They're going to submit all the time cards. They're going to send them out for you to approve. So if it says submitted, that's in good shape. You'll be able to go over here and click approve. The submit really means nothing for us. So the only 2 buttons we're going to use are save and approve. Now, if it says rejected here, it'll say rejected in red. What happened? Well, maybe you took a look at the time card, maybe you approved the time off, or maybe you approved the change request. So what payroll will do is that time card will automatically, once those approved, go into a rejected status. Every hour, payroll goes back through and updates those back to submitted. So it might just take a couple minutes before you're able to approve that time card. And then once it is approved, when you click approve here, this will change to approve. The word will be in green, and you'll know that you'll be able to move on from there. So we kind of skipped over timesheets awaiting approval. So we'll go to that again, back to the icon, the logo icon, my employees, timesheets pending approval. So I apologize, but this is one thing that we probably really have to wait till next Monday to train on. But it's a report very similar to any of those others that we just saw, where you would have a list view of all of your timesheets pending approval. So again, these populate every Monday morning for every payroll Monday morning at 8 a.m. Payroll will go through, process for every employee that worked in your pay period, or maybe even didn't work but had a time card. They'll show up on a list, and you'll either be able to view them, or mass edit them, either mass approve or mass reject. Leave open. And that's something we can take a look at in a future training. So we talked about the 8 a.m. So those time cards, what they'd like to have is all the missing punches resolved, all the change requests, all the time off requests resolved by 5 p.m. on payroll Monday. So they can do their processing, the payroll department can do their processing on Tuesday. Now, Sometimes they will send out a couple reports throughout the day, usually Monday afternoon, once as they're leaving. If are resolved, let's get them reaching out to the managers and saying, hey, these people are still on these reports. Is there something that we can do to help you get those people resolved, get those timesheets approved, or are there things that we need to figure out for them? From there, on Wednesdays, payroll has a hard deadline that we have to submit everything to back to Kronos to process payroll, basically so they can make all the direct deposit submissions in time for people to get direct deposits by Friday. So I'm happy to take a look at more things really quick. Apologies, the system's taking a second. So I guess while that, we'll click on My Employees. We're going to go to Employee Information. And once again, we can search. So it starts with first name. I'm just going to take another look at that test employee. I'm going to go to this first one, test employee 2. And instead of going to the quick links, I'm going to go to this first icon where it says employee information. And so you may not have this full view, but one of the things you'll be able to look at is if we scroll down, personal information would show you contact information. So you can see emails, primary email is always going to be the work email. Secondary email is going to be a personal email. Cell phone would be a cell phone. Social security number would be a, with their social, if you have access to that. If we scroll down a little bit, address, if we need to send something to them, we'll be able to do that. If we go down a little further, maybe you need to look at dates. There are a number of dates in the system, but most likely you're probably looking at date hired. How long have they been employed? We can take a look at the employment length. There are a number of other fields, not going to bog you down with that today, but just wanted to give you a quick overview that if you wanted to, look somebody up, you go to that employee information, click on personal information, and then we can see contact information there. So one of the last things I want to take a look at today for this training is just errors and warnings. So there are a number of different errors and warnings that may come up throughout the system. One of the most common would be you cannot approve due to security and workflow settings. So I probably can't recreate that error today. But basically what an error is something, is the system giving you an alert that you cannot move forward until it's resolved. So that security and workflow settings is very commonly, or most commonly, if it's a time off approval. So if you're trying to approve somebody's time off, you get that error, cannot approve due to security and workflow settings. What that means is you weren't a manager at the time that the employee put the request in. So one of two things to fix that: either we need to have a different manager who was at the time the request was put in, approve it, or we have the employee go in and resubmit. If it comes up on a time card, very possibly that time card was approved by a different manager. So multiple managers have access to an employee, maybe a different manager went in and approved that time card. Or is an employee that's maybe terminated with a date prior to the date that we were trying to approve a time card for. So those are things that we can work with HR to get fixed up. Another common error on a time card is that incomplete timesheet. So if we go back real quick to that test employee, so this is an error we can recreate. If we go to the quick links, click on current timesheet, remember that there was down here a missing punch. So if I go up here to approve, are we sure? Yes. Processing, and it's going to say error, incomplete time entry for 21/7/07 to what time? No punch out. And then it also gives me a warning. So this warning says, you're approving a current timesheet? Do you want to continue? So you can approve a timesheet ahead of time, The only problem is if you do so, then the employee won't be able to punch in or out any further. So if it's 425, there's still a week left in the pay period. If we wanted that employee to, if they were going to work anymore, or, you know, even the potential that they're going to work anymore, we don't want to approve that a time card until payroll Monday. So warnings are something, conversely, from an error where you can't move forward. Warnings, you can move forward. It's just, are you sure you want to? So that's a quick 1 hour overview of time and labor management. We'll come back and take a look at a couple of those other things in a future training. But this will be recorded, that if anybody has any issues or wants to take a look back, we can go from there. And we'll open up for questions in just a second.